Hey everyone, it's Scott Hansen from NFL Red Zone reminding you to watch Sports Ballers, the podcast that gets you caught up on everything Washington sports and beyond.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Sports Ballers podcast. I'm Corey Puffett, joined as always by Eric Meyer and Evan Ash. How you guys doing this week?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
Doing well, Eric.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm waiting for Evan to respond first because I can't actually see him this week. I'm doing all right. Got a work lunch today, so that was nice. Didn't have to pay for my own lunch, and I got to get away for a little bit. So
Where'd you guys go?
went to Uncle Julio's.
Nice.
Pretty good. Yeah, they got one. They're all over the place. They got one in Columbia. They got one in Bethesda. We went to the one in Gaithersburg. So, yeah.
Very nice.
Not bad.
So Evan is remote again this week, unfortunately. Fridays seem to work best for him to be in person, and we are looking into maybe doing Fridays as a regular thing at some point down the road, but we got to get through the rest of DeMatha's basketball season first because I'm kind of swamped with those games, and we got several Friday games coming up. Also, this coming Friday, Eric and I are working together again because Eric is going to be doing the color commentary for the prep hockey game.
Yes, the dream team of Corey and Eric and Steven. This time a different Steven than I'm used to.
Yes.
But, I will be calling another hockey game. I was able to pawn off the play-by-play commentary onto Steven April.
Well, it turned out that play-by-play is actually what he preferred to do. So
Okay,
he's actually quite happy with the arrangement.
Awesome. I mean, I would do it, but I'm obviously not as familiar with the team. I
don't know how familiar he is with the team either, but that's going to be his problem. He'll have to deal with that.
Look, if he messes it up, he works there, right? Like, I'd much rather have somebody that works there messing up the play-by-play. That way, it's like, yeah, we got Steven to do it because he teaches theology here. Whereas, like, some random alum that is, by the way, not in the Hall of Fame, is just here calling this game and messing it up on Stags TV.
And then I wound up getting my Hall of Fame induction rescinded because
that might make it worth it. I'm just kidding.
Jeez. Wow.
Whole thing deduction.
Show you how your friends really feel.
Yeah, we're jealous and petty here on the Sports Ballers. We don't support our buddies.
All that aside, let's go ahead and dive into this week's show. We got wild card weekend, super wild card weekend. Everybody wanted to throw the super in front of there.
I don't like it.
I did not like the Monday game. I would have much preferred 3 Saturday, 3 Sunday.
I feel like the Monday game is, like from an entertainment standpoint, I get it. It's a television show. Having a Monday night football game during the playoffs is kind of a thrill because we don't usually get those. But I do think that there's some issues with the scheduling that kind of disrupt the typical routine of the playoffs. And I think it also is a pretty big disadvantage for, like, say, the Cowboys this week. We'll get into that a little bit, but the 49ers have had 2 more days of rest. Like, they played their game on Saturday, so the Cowboys have a short week. The 49ers have a quote-unquote long week, if you will. So.
No, agreed. So we'll get into more of that as well as our look ahead into the divisional playoff round. I don't think we have any topics outside of the NFL, though, this week. Do we have anything in the NBA going on, Eric?
I mean, just regular season basketball. We talked about some of the injuries last week. Golden State visited the White House today.
Yeah, that did happen.
For commemorating their championship last summer. Obviously, that means they played the Wizards recently because that's usually when teams swing through the White House because it's not like the Wizards ever go there because they won a championship. They don't do that.
Well, particularly if you're a West Coast team. Like, that's a long trip to make for nothing else than the White House.
Yeah, exactly. So they got that moment to shine in front of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So good for them.
Your boy Stan Van on Twitter today did not know what it means to be spitting. Misunderstood a response from KD.
I found this to be kind of sweet because, like, Stan Van is like, he is such a good dude, but he's also very expressive and he's very active on social media, as you've seen. And just the fact that he had absolutely no idea that Kevin Durant was telling him that he was agreeing with him and he was saying the right stuff. And he just was like, huh? It's like, I'm glad he admitted it. He didn't just go, didn't go dark off the grid after he kind of realized, oh, wait, I didn't know something that I probably should have known. Yeah.
He just came out and was like, I had no idea.
No idea. But that's such a Stan Van thing to do. It was great. I'm sorry that I got him fired.
You did.
I got him fired and that Brandon Staley still exists. Unbelievable.
All right, so we'll move off of the NBA. Any updates on the Terps in the college realm?
They've been up and down. They lost to they played Iowa on the road. Got beat pretty convincingly. It wasn't a blowout, but clearly Iowa was the better team that night. But they beat Ohio State, who was ranked at home. I think I mentioned that on a previous podcast. And then they play Michigan at home tomorrow night, which will be interesting because Maryland fans hate Hunter Dickinson. As DeMatha people, we obviously have, we try to be a little bit more measured with our takes on him, although we acknowledge.
But it does seem like he goes a little overboard on the anti-Maryland thing.
He's earned the scorn of the fans for sure. But at the same time, I give him unending credit for the fact that when Maryland went up there to play Michigan in Ann Arbor, they dominated Maryland, and he was the main reason why. Like, they couldn't stop him. I'm expecting similar results. I'm hoping that since the person he had real beef with and Mark Turgeon is no longer with the school, no longer the coach, that maybe we can settle down a little bit with the anti-Maryland stuff. And hey, if you're really that caught up in the fact that Maryland didn't recruit you and you seem to still have a little bit of a scorned lover attitude about it, you got another year of eligibility. Come on down, man. The Turge is gone. Kevin Willard's turning the program around. Michigan's kind of trending not in the right direction with their violent head coach. Come to Maryland, baby. We'll take you. You'll be the best player on the team right away. Be awesome. I'd love it.
I did get a chance to see a couple of former football Terps this week. So yesterday at DeMatha's basketball game where we unfortunately lost to St. John's, another tough WCAC loss. Granted, another very good team. I mean, O'Connell is good this year. PVI is nationally ranked. Some places seem to have them number one. I've seen them as high as number 2 recently. St. John's is ranked. We've still got another game against Gonzaga coming up against a ranked team. Would love to see us win that, especially seeing as it's on my birthday. But I got to see Nick Cross. Okay. He was there. His younger brother is a sophomore at DeMatha and plays on the junior varsity team. But he was there for the varsity game. It's always tough when you're working it. I would have loved to have actually gotten a chance to really talk to him and just kind of ask him how things went with his first season in Indianapolis. I really just got a chance to dap him up and congratulate him on a good rookie year. And then today, Ethan Goff, who was Maryland's full-time long snapper, snapped every long snap on field goals, extra points, and punts this season. He stopped by. I taught him for a few classes when he was at DeMatha, so that was pretty cool.
A Dukes Mayo champion.
Nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and then Major League Baseball wise, Evan, can you give me a quick update on the Orioles' major signings of the offseason?
Sure.
That was
our
colleague Evan Ash, and I don't think he missed anything there.
Well, the Orioles did have, I guess Baseball America came out with their top 100 prospects recently, and the Orioles had the number 1 farm system, according to them, with 8 top 100 prospects. So, yay for them. Still would have liked to see them actually get some major leaguers, like new faces in here to replace some of the old bad faces, but I guess it's too much to ask.
Of course it is.
John Angelos had a really condescending moment with Dan Connolly in an interview where they were asking him questions, I guess, related to the team and potential sale and things like that, and he got weird about it. He said, "I'm not going to answer questions like that on Martin Luther King Jr. Day." And I'm like, what?
What is...
Like, almost like this is a day of remembrance of an American icon. I'm not going to waste my time answering questions because reasons. I don't know. Like,
Please
MLK
tell me
have to
that
do with
reporter went back and asked him the same question the next day.
No,
Because that's totally what I would have done if I was a professional reporter.
it was more like a scathing, very lengthy article on The Athletic that was written, and I haven't.
That's probably fair too.
I haven't had a chance to read it because I do have a subscription to The Athletic that I inadvertently re-upped because I forgot to cancel it. But so I might as well take advantage of that. And
I've done that before with the Washington Post.
yeah, I've done it with the New York Times crossword puzzle too. I haven't actually done a crossword puzzle in probably 2 years, but I'm still paying $40 every year to re-up the subscription for the New York Times. So maybe I should actually take advantage of that because I think you can kind of bundle that with an Athletic subscription, but whatever. That's a lot more personal stuff that has nothing to do with the podcast. So
Yep. So with all that said, I guess we'll just go ahead and dive right into the major sport that is going on right now, which is football, because we are in the playoffs. 6 teams have been eliminated. 8 teams remain. Let's talk about one of the teams that was eliminated this past week. Evan, your Ravens, spectacularly, and as you put it, ceremoniously bounced from the playoffs with a 24-17 loss in Cincinnati. What happened in that game?
I mean, it's hard to win when the QB1's not out there. Like, in the NFL, it's a rule to go by, to me. If your starting quarterback gets hurt and misses time, you're screwed. You can just forget it. So, I mean, the Ravens backed into the playoffs. Lamar missed, the last 5 or 6 games or something like that. Ravens couldn't score hardly any points, and they averaged 12 points a game without Lamar. We got it all the way up to 17 this past week, so, great for them. But yeah, this went exactly how I thought it. Well, not exactly. Pretty much how I thought it was going to go. See, when you set your expectations low, you can't be disappointed. So, the Bengals are really good going into their building on Sunday Night Football, the most watched television program in the history of television. No bright lights or anything, but when you don't have the main guy, it's hard to win. So I mean, that's really all there is to it.
Ravens did cover the spread, though. I believe I had that.
I did not have that.
Neither of you had that. That was the only successful lone wolf pick by any of us this past weekend. Was that
Great.
One. Yeah, so a pat on my back.
it looks like it was going our way too when the Bengals scored to make it 9-0, and we're like, oh sweet, they're about to be up by 10. Then the dude misses the extra point, and it's just kind of like, that feels like an omen. Like the Ravens are going to start figuring some stuff out. The Bengals are going to start making some mistakes and kind of keep them in it. And then, of course, I mean, the Ravens probably should have won the football game if not for that ridiculous play on the goal line. I mean, that's a 14-point swing.
Yes.
So, I mean, and the Bengals won by 7. So, there's that.
That was insane. I really thought that the Ravens were about to win that game for a minute.
Yeah, when they were about to go into score, I was like, my thought process was, okay, if the Bengals make a goal line stand here and keep them out of the end zone, I think they have a chance. But if they give up a touchdown, I'm like, that's going to be really hard because you got to get a touchdown and then another score.
Yeah, and their offense have been kind of struggling.
Yeah, I mean, their offensive line's kind of banged up now. They lost a third starter to injuries in the middle of the game. So you started to see a little bit of that. Like early in the game, they were moving the ball pretty much at will. And then the offensive line kind of fell apart, and it was like, it's a little bit more of a struggle now.
And then again, just the fact that they were playing against each other for the third time this season. You run out of new things that you can throw at your opponent. You've seen everything, not just on film, but actually in game. You've seen just about everything that the other team can do over the course of those 2 games. That gives the defenses a significant advantage, which tends to lead to lower scoring games, which is what happened here. And, that lends itself to, big spreads not being very easily overcome by the favorite team.
And beyond that, though, just the Ravens as just an organization, they don't go out and just get blown off the field. Like they make it tough for you no matter what. Like with Tyler Huntley or whether it was Anthony Brown or whoever, you're going to lose in all likelihood just because those guys aren't good football players. They're not good quarterbacks, and they're playing the most important position. but you got defense, you've got coaching, things like that.
Special teams.
Yeah, we've criticized the Ravens coaching this year. Harbaugh's been kind of up and down. We know Greg Roman has not had the best year as an offensive coordinator, but just as a team, they're never going to go out there and if they lay an egg, it's going to be, okay, you had bad Sundays. They're never going to quit, right? And they were absolutely not quitting, even though, again, they looked like they were about to go down 10-0 on the road. You don't have your starting quarterback. Most teams would just pack it up and get blown out, but the Ravens just aren't built that way.
And as Evan and Eric both just mentioned, the Ravens without their starting quarterback, Lamar Jackson, a lot of people this past week weighing in on basically on his decision not to play. At least that's the way that a lot of people are framing this conversation, is that he is making a decision for himself that he doesn't want to play, putting himself over the team, yada, yada, yada. And, it's really easy for people who have never played football to play armchair quarterback, including a lot of the talking heads who have been talking about this. But there are also some people who have played football and some who have played quarterback who have lent their voice to this. Robert Griffin III has been very much in support of Lamar Jackson. RG3 was a teammate of Lamar Jackson briefly, also played, of course, for Washington. Anybody who listens to this podcast probably, is familiar with RG3's story and how his career basically ended. The whole trajectory of his career just went downhill because of injuries to his knee. Meanwhile, on the other hand, one of the biggest critics of Lamar Jackson among former quarterbacks has been Michael Vick, who's basically just saying, strap on a brace and get out there. I did it. I played on a partially torn ACL or whatever for like an entire season. You just braced it up all year. It's like, yeah. And first of all, you were quite a bit older. Your career was already, not going to be very much longer just in general because you were getting close to aging out of the NFL. We're talking about Lamar Jackson, who's still a young guy, still potentially has a lot of years ahead of him. And you're basically saying, go ahead and go out there and risk further injury, risk aggravating this, risk shortening your career even more than it already probably will be, just on the basis that he is a running quarterback, on the basis that he is going to be in situations more frequently than a traditional pocket passer where he's going to suffer these sorts of injuries on a repeated basis. Like, that's already going to happen. But if you're adding aggravation to current injuries that he hasn't even healed from, you're just shortening it even more.
Yeah, go ahead, Evan.
Oh, well, I don't have a problem with Lamar missing this game, whether it was because of injury or because of money, because it's not my body and it's not my money. So if Lamar feels like he's not physically capable of playing, in the NFL, without risking further damage to his knee, then he shouldn't be out there. And then if Lamar feels like he's not being fairly compensated for his work, then he should withhold his services until the Ravens pay up. So, it's unfortunate that it had to go down this way. I don't think he's like faking the injury or anything like that, but I don't have a problem with Lamar at all. I wish he had played. I want to see Lamar play. Wear the Lamar Jackson jersey for every game. But if he's not able to go, then he shouldn't go. Robert Griffin III posted a picture, I think in response to Michael Vick talking about put a brace on it and get out there. RG3 had the gigantic brace on his knee, and then just crumpled to the turf in a heap.
Yeah, didn't help him very much.
Yeah, and his career was essentially ruined after that. Like, it was never the same again.
Yeah, like the issue I have, again, Michael Vick, Corey, you mentioned the fact that he was later on in his career. Even more importantly, he had been paid multiple times.
Yeah.
Had, big contracts. He got one from the Falcons. Of course, most of that was voided when he went to prison.
Sure.
But then he got another big contract with Philadelphia.
Yep.
After he had the 2010 awesome season that he had to sort of rejuvenate his career. And we gave him unending credit for that. I'm not going to knock Michael Vick for his past transgressions. I think he's repaid his debt to society, and he's one of the one of the few cases of the American justice system actually resulting in somebody being rehabilitated. So I'll take that as a win there. But
For sure.
in terms of just talking football, Vic puts a brace on his knee to protect it from further damage. Lamar Jackson, this isn't about even further damage. This is, can you actually play on this right now with any level of efficacy? And based on what J.K. Dobbins said, the answer is absolutely not. Like J.K. Dobbins said, he's still hobbling around the practice facility or in the locker room. Like he can't walk without favoring one leg because, he's injured.
Yeah, a brace doesn't just magically fix that.
So, like, Lamar Jackson ain't going to be able to go out there. I mean, we watched what happened with Bob Griffin when he went out there and played. Even before he injured his knee, he was playing terribly. Like, he was not having a good game because he was playing on a bum knee. Lamar Jackson relies on his ability to cut, his ability to run. That's what makes him special. And if you sent him out there as a gimpy version of Lamar Jackson, you're not winning the football game anyway because he's not going to play up to snuff and he needs to heal. So, like the comparison that Vic made, okay, so you went out there and were a warrior for a day. You don't think Lamar Jackson's had days where he could have sat out because he doesn't want to re-aggravate some injury? The dude has been beat up probably his entire career. He's playing football. By nature, you're out there playing with some sort of injury after the first training camp day. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. But to sit there and act like...
spent a whole season with Alejandro Villanueva, his left tackle, right?
Yes.
Like, that's not the recipe for success, I guess.
Yes, he spent the entire first Monday night of the season getting mauled by Max Crosby, who nobody had ever heard of at the time.
Never heard of him.
And, so that just goes to show it's like you're not the one dealing with the injury. So don't act like your situation is a one-to-one. A lot of people do that. They like, well, back in my day, I toughed it out. And say, well, you don't know what he's actually dealing with. You are not a medical professional. You are not him. So understand you are ignorant of his situation. And Lamar and Michael Vick have had a relationship since Lamar blew up in the NFL because Lamar's out there breaking his rushing records at the quarterback position. You should understand that the guy that you've shared time with isn't out there milking an injury or being a baby. He's doing all he can, and he's just that hurt. And you should probably stick up for him.
I believe it was in 2004 in the preseason, Michael Vick got hurt. It was 2005. Around then, he got hurt in the preseason, broke his fibula against the Ravens. So, like, he didn't come back right away. He didn't stick a brace on his broken leg and go play the next week. He missed a bunch of time that season. So, like, what are you talking about right now? And Lamar's, he turned 26 years old on January 7th. So, like, you don't put your prime at risk, particularly when there's a giant mountain of money on the horizon.
Yeah, no, definitely agree with all of that. So we have a few coaches to talk about this week in a segment of why haven't you been fired yet? And we'll kind of spread those out through the show, I think would be a good way to do this. So as long as we're on the Ravens, we'll just go ahead and knock everything out with them. For the most part, I think we're wondering about head coaches who haven't been fired and why they haven't been fired. But we do have one offensive coordinator on our list, and that is Evan's Ravens, Greg Roman. Why has Greg Roman not been fired yet, Evan?
I think it's just going to take a little while to sort of, I guess, decompress from the season to figure out what they should do leading into the 2023 season. So
do you think he ultimately will be fired?
Yes. But last year, like the season ended on the last day of the regular season, and then Wink Martindale, the former defensive coordinator, was let go like a couple weeks later.
So you think that this will be a repeat of that?
Yeah.
Why do you think that he will and should be fired? I mean, this offense, a big part of their struggle through the season has been that Lamar hasn't been there the whole season. And granted, after a really hot start to the year, Lamar did, struggle a bit. The whole offense didn't play great. Maybe I'm answering my own question because Mark Andrews was terrible this year. But is that Greg Roman's fault?
It's somebody's fault. whose fault is it?
Maybe it's Mark Andrews' fault.
I mean, he did turn into a pumpkin.
Maybe it's the fault of all of the running backs starting the season hurt. And, I mean, J.K. Dobbins has looked really good over the last few weeks, but it took him several weeks to actually get back into
He missed
game
like 9
form.
games.
Yeah,
in the middle of the
he
season.
missed a lot of games, and when he did first come back, he didn't look that good because he just wasn't in football form yet. But he's looked good recently, so like that could be a part of the offense's struggles. Like there are so many things that you can point to that I think, if anything, maybe makes a case for why an offensive coordinator shouldn't be fired, because he wasn't coaching the offense. He was not coaching a true Baltimore Ravens 2022 offense. They were missing everybody.
I do feel like my issue with Greg Roman is the passing game is unimaginative and ineffective.
How imaginative can it be when Lamar Jackson is not on the field?
It's not imaginative when he is on the field.
How imaginative can it be when your general manager has not given Lamar Jackson any wide receivers?
I mean, I don't know. You could try something. I mean, there's other teams that have crap wide receivers and they get wide open all the time. Like the Giants against the Vikings. People just running free. Like, who is that guy?
We'll get to them.
No
in a
idea.
little bit.
Never heard of him. But he's wide open. So, what's the problem there?
All right. Well, as long as we're pivoting to the Vikings, may as well just go ahead and jump on back, because the Vikings are who we thought they were. Who did we think they were?
Frauds.
Yeah.
There you go.
We all this was the Vikings were at home, went 13-4. We're playing a team that was the Giants go 9-7-1.
Mm-hmm.
So
like that.
you had 4 more wins than your opponent, who you are hosting, and you were favored by 3 points. People, under normal circumstances, if somebody woke up from a coma and just saw that piece of information, they would have said, "Are you kidding me? Pound the Vikings. They're clearly the way better team. I'm only getting 3." Or they would ask, "Who's injured on the Vikings?" The answer would be, nobody of that big of import, right? They're pretty healthy. And it's just and we still all said, "Nah, give us the Giants." That's just living proof. And the Giants aren't exactly a team that I would call
They're frauds
on the up
too.
and up. They're pretty fraudulent too. But I would say, I think I said it last week, the Giants started off as frauds and then actually kind of played their way into being a pretty competitive team, whereas the Vikings were frauds from day one and just kind of stayed there.
If anything, they got worse.
Yeah, they probably did. Because the Giants were out there winning 1-possession games against bad teams, but then they were out there competing against the Eagles, even with their backups out there. The Giants didn't try to win that game, and the Eagles had to struggle to win it.
Yeah.
The Giants actually kind of Daniel Jones looks like a guy that the Giants are going to have to pay. I don't know how much they're going to pay him. I don't know if they just tag him. But going into the year, we all kind of said Daniel Jones is cooked, right?
We called him Danny Pennies.
Yeah, we called our show Danny Pennies one week. And we all just said, this guy's he's a lame duck quarterback. He's going to have his 4th year. They're not going to pick up his option, and he's going to be gone.
They already didn't pick up his option.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Evan. They already didn't pick up his option, so he's going to be out the door, and they're going to be finding somebody else. And, of course, the first week against the Titans, I think they played, and he throws this egregious pick in the end zone, and Brian Daboll spends 45 seconds just berating him on the sidelines. We're just here we go. The new head coach hates the quarterback because he sucks. And it's almost like Brian Daboll screamed at him, and then Daniel Jones was like, "Oh, maybe I should stop throwing interceptions." And he did. He hasn't turned the ball over nearly the same rate that he did last year. Daboll knows how to take advantage of Daniel Jones' legs. Did we lose Evan?
We sure did.
All right, well, I'll keep filibustering while you try to get him back online.
Yep.
But,
he's back.
Daniel Jones ran for 7 first downs in this game
never
against
went
the
anywhere.
Vikings. He legitimately looks like a pretty good quarterback, at least functional, despite the fact that he's got just absolute garbage at wide receiver. He doesn't have anybody to throw to, and he's just making
But
it
they
happen.
were wide
anyway.
open, weren't they?
Yeah, they were open. Well, that was partially because they're playing the Vikings, whose defense was that. That's really the story. I feel like.
Oh, because Eli Apple's such a great cover guy.
Again, Evan, I'm sorry that the Ravens suck and couldn't beat the Bengals, but Eli Apple also got toasted by Demarcus Robinson for a touchdown, so you did get that win in the game. But But the Vikings defense has been garbage all year. Like, that's the main reason they've been so fraudulent. Like, their offense has been pretty high level at times. Cousins hasn't been special or anything like that. He never is.
Cook has been downright bad at times this year.
But Justin
Certainly
Jefferson,
by comparison,
Justin Jefferson.
He's still amazing.
And the addition of T.J. Hockenson gave the offense a little bit more, multi-level dimensions with the ability to throw the ball over the middle of the field while Jefferson draws all the attention in the world.
Yep.
But the defense was always going to be the problem. Like, they were going to get torched by any competent offense, and any competent offense just happened to be the Giants this week.
Yep. So Vikings lost that game. The Chargers.
Oh my God. Unbelievable.
They
Not
were up
really
27-0 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence had thrown 4 interceptions. Trevor Lawrence was Football Outsiders' worst quarterback of the wild card weekend, according to Quick Reads. And the Jacksonville Jaguars came back and won 31-30. Mm-hmm. Scored 31 of the game's last 34 points to come back and win. What are the Chargers doing? How can one franchise have so many collapses of epic proportions just in our lifetimes?
I mean, the answer, I feel, is pretty obvious. I feel like it's an owner that doesn't give a damn about the team. And he made that clear.
When he moved them from San Diego.
When he moved them from a place where they had fans to a place that they would never have fans. And also has made it clear this week, and I said it jokingly but almost seriously, the NFL needs to step in and demand that Brandon Staley be removed from his position at head coach. They need to David Stern this thing and take over operations of the Chargers for at least a moment to can this fool. And if the Chargers are unwilling to pay him, this needs to be like a public defender. One will be provided for you at the expense of the state. Brandon Staley is a blight on the NFL. His presence as a head coach hurts the product because he is a moron. He's arrogant. He has been selected for extinction by yours truly, and I am not getting my pound of flesh right now, and I'm very unsatisfied with that because I deliberately tapped him because I said, either you're going to succeed because your team forces you to, or you're going to mess up so badly that something like this happens. Well, damn it, this happened, and he's still employed. What's going on?
Yes, the second name on our Why Have You Not Been Fired Yet segment.
They fired Lombardi, which was absolutely necessary.
Oh,
he
yeah,
was horrible
absolutely.
too.
Yeah. The offensive coordinator, he gone. Deservedly so. But why is this guy still employed?
Defensive guy. Remember? He's a defensive guy.
Yeah, he stood next to Aaron Donald at one time.
And Sean McVay.
Garbage.
And Sean McVay.
You know, like the Chargers defense is so bad. I think they were 32nd in the league in run defense, which isn't what you want. Like, you have Khalil Mack on your team. You have Joey Bosa on your team. Unless you play him in week 18 for no reason, then you might not have him out there. Or if he's mouthing off to the ref and gets tossed from the game, you might not have him out there. But most of the time you have Joey Bosa on your team.
I enjoyed some of the memes about what Joey Bosa might have said to that ref to get the flag.
Well, because my first thought was, okay, I know that his brother has earned a reputation for, being that type. But I was like, they're brothers, so it's hard to imagine that they had diverging paths on things like that. Normally that's kind of taught behavior at the familial level. So I was kind of like, okay, but has Joey ever done anything like that? But I was also thinking, I'm like, that ref got really mad at him. Like, he was pissed when Bosa said whatever he said, ran after him. Everybody got all mad at the ref. They're like, oh my God, why would he escalate that situation? I'm like, you don't know what he said. He could have said anything to that guy. Like, let's keep it real. Mm-hmm. I still don't understand. Like, they said it on the broadcast, whatever official, like the Mike Pereira of NBC. I don't remember who he is. When Bosa,
Terry McCauley.
Who?
Terry McCauley.
Oh, is it McCauley? Okay.
So when Bosa threw his helmet on the turf and Staley, the simp, goes up and picks it up for him instead of getting in his face and telling him to get his stuff together. He's about to ruin the football game. He then throws it down again. But I don't understand how that type of unsportsmanlike conduct penalty doesn't count towards your 2 that you're allowed before you're ejected. Like, he got the 1 for mouthing off to the ref earlier in the game, and then the next sequence after what he thought was a false start and maybe even a hold on the touchdown pass right before the 2-point conversion that was significant to some. That's when Bosa had the meltdown, and they said, yeah, and McCauley said on the broadcast, this doesn't count towards an ejection. I'm like, why wouldn't this count towards an ejection? Like, this is very unsportsmanlike to throw your helmet down on the field of play. Like, that, it's not allowed because it's unsportsmanlike. I don't, but he knew that it wasn't. I was like, that's just a weird rule. But, you know, like, that goes to Staley's failure to coach, though, in my opinion. Like, he showed in so many different ways that he wasn't equipped for this. Game planning, decision-making in the game, getting your players to act right in a playoff situation. Couldn't do that with Joey Bosa, who was out there just ruining the game for his team. I mean, it was an unending disaster that, you know, it required the clock to hit 0 for it just to be like, this is finally over. This guy's finally going to be done, and he's not done. Like I even said it on the chat. I pointed it out. I said, when it was 27-0, and the Chargers got the ball back, and they were approaching the 2-minute warning, and it was 3rd and inches, and they ran that stupid sweep play that apparently never worked. They tried it a bunch of times. It had, like, the total yardage on that play that they tried 4 times was like negative 21 yards. It was a complete failure of a play.
And this time they ran it with somebody that the play wasn't even designed for in the first place.
Like, again, people will say, okay, that's on the offensive coordinator, and I agree. But at some point, the head coach needs to say, no. Just put Justin Herbert's big ass behind the line and sneak the ball, pick up the first down so that we can at least get to the half up 27, worst case scenario.
Or even just give it to Austin Eckler. You've got a good running back.
He was great in this game. Eckler was.
I'm flabbergasted by the fact that coaches don't understand. Managing the end of the half is when you do your most important coaching, except for at the end of the game. Right, because that is the only situation where you don't exchange possessions. That's the only time where the who gets the ball next is scripted. So you got to make sure you do everything in your power to have the ball last, or at least don't give the opponent an opportunity realistically to score. And you gave the ball right back to them at the 2-minute warning, and they went down the field and they scored a touchdown. And I said, you know, it's probably not going to matter, but you know, that's the type of decision that ruins a playoff game, and that should be taken into consideration when considering whether to continue to keep you employed. And sure enough, he continued to blow the game in spectacular fashion. They lost.
Maybe the best part about this game was the announcing. Oh, I'm sorry, did I say best? I meant worst parts of this game was the announcing. Could there have been a less enthusiastic booth for this epic comeback for the Jaguars?
It was just unconscionable.
It's mind-numbing.
Like, at first, it looked like it was going great. It's like, this is the perfect time to have, you know, 2 human Ambiens in the booth. You know, because I'm like, okay, it's 27-0. This game is going to be a snoozer-rooney, so might as well just, you know, waste the broadcast on these guys. And the thing is, Al Michaels, obviously a legend, but he's old, man. He's, you know, he kind of needs somebody to play off of to get that energy up. And they put Tony Dungy in there with him. And I was furious at the start of the game. I was ranting on the chat about, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. They put Tony Dungy in the booth with Al Michaels. This is a terrible idea. He has no energy for this position. And it has nothing to do with my contempt for Tony Dungy for all of his other crap that he says. It was purely based on this guy isn't capable of doing the job. I don't even mind Tony Dungy as the halftime guy that they toss it to along with Maria Taylor and now Jason Garrett. I think, okay, whatever. I can ignore that. And you don't really have to be a rah-rah guy. You're in the booth. You got to be excited, man. You got to be into the game. Like Mike Tirico was. Shout out to him. He was spectacular.
He was awesome.
And again, Al Michaels is old, man. He can't carry a booth like that. He needs somebody to play off of to get himself energized. I talked about it before when Romo first came in with Nance. I thought that Nance was getting a little sleepy when he had Phil Simms. Because
very
Phil
much
Simms
so.
was really sleepy and boring and not very intelligent. But Romo came in and just Nance is a new man in the booth. Mm-hmm. And this is what happened with Michaels. It's just like you put him in there with somebody lame, And
it brought his performance
killed his performance.
to levels that I never thought, or to depths that I never thought that he could reach. Like it was so bad.
It was brutal.
Yeah. Last thing on this game, there's a piece on The Ringer this week that goes through all of the Chargers' epic meltdowns from the past couple of decades. Definitely worth a read. I have not gotten to finish the article because there's a lot of meltdowns to get through. So I'll have to finish that later. Elsewhere during wildcard weekend, the 49ers rolled the Seahawks. Hat tip to the Seahawks for making it. The Lions should have been there because the Rams should have won that game. Refs stepped in and prevented that from happening. And look,
couldn't make the throw, man.
That too. And look, in all seriousness, congratulations to the Seahawks for making it. Pete Carroll apparently can still coach in the NFL. And Geno Smith apparently can play quarterback when he's got a good coach who believes in him, when he's got some good wide receivers, when he's got a decent team around him, when they get a couple of rookie offensive linemen to work together through the season. And when a teammate is not breaking his jaw. Thank you, Evan.
I mean, I picked the Seahawks to be eliminated from the playoffs the first
in week 1.
And I don't think that was an off-the-wall pick.
I don't think any of us thought that was off the wall.
You're probably that's a pretty good selection. We could probably play it back and be like, oh yeah, that's probably a good idea. I should have done them before I did the Giants. But
no, I was pretty confident with the Giants at the time too.
I was too. I was like, that's probably a good pick.
Can't relate. Perfect eliminated team.
Yeah,
Your
yes,
boy,
congratulations.
Evan can flex that all off season.
But yeah, so hat tip to the Seahawks for being there, but short-lived because the 49ers are just really, really good. Minus Elijah Mitchell, who was the week's worst running back according to Quick Reads. But Brock Purdy had another pretty good week. Eric is waiting for Brock Purdy to have a dud because he is tired of hearing that.
No, not because I like Brock Purdy. I think he's a cool story, but and plus it just reinforces Evan and I. We both have the long-standing thesis that Jimmy G sucks, and this kind of just we don't need a whole lot more evidence, but we'll always take a little more just for the for the purposes of being able to say I told you so yet again. But Purdy was...
That was close, Eric.
No, nothing was close. There was no near curse words uttered. There was no... I was going to say Schadenfreude, Evan, but it didn't make sense in the context, so I stopped myself. All right, Evan, fine. You're being a hater. Anyway, but Purdy was a little erratic to start the game. He missed some throws, kind of got away with a couple of should-have-been interceptions.
And it may have just been, he is Mr. Irrelevant for a reason. He was a 4-year starter in college, but he didn't, turn a lot of heads. The size maybe isn't there. Some of the arm strength maybe wasn't there that scouts were looking for. But also, even that aside, he's a rookie making his first playoff start. Like, those playoff jitters are a real thing. We've seen that before from really good players.
Yeah,
we saw it from Trevor Lawrence on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit of a buzzkill here. The Mr. Irrelevant thing doesn't do it for me, right? Like, we've seen undrafted free agent quarterbacks, which basically is
Tony Romo was very good.
Yeah, Kurt Warner, we've seen guys, bagging groceries come in and be great. So being the 232nd pick or whatever the actual number is, it doesn't move me like it might have if Mr. Irrelevant was the NFL still had like 40-round drafts or something like that. It's a coincidence more than anything, right? Like being the 32nd pick in the 7th round, we've seen worse quarterbacks from worse situations end up being good. So it's cute. I don't think it's like, oh my God, it's the greatest story ever. I'm like, we've seen better stories, right? Like Kurt Warner's a better story. He wasn't even drafted. He was playing in the Arena League. He was working
maybe
at the
not
Giants.
A good enough story to actually make me want to watch the movie, but a good story.
The movie looked terrible.
It looked bad.
Like no shade to the actor, but he was like 42 years old playing a mid-20s Kurt Warner. I'm like, that's a choice, I guess, but I'm not sure I agree with it.
But yeah, after the early erraticism from Brock Purdy, he cleaned it up, got on target with Deebo Samuels, with Brandon Ayuk. Christian McCaffrey had a good game. So really impressive performance by the 49ers as a whole.
People were
and that defense is so good.
People were gassing up that throw though think it was to Jennings down the side.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that wasn't a good
Jawan
throw.
Jennings?
Like, he left it inside. Like, if he puts it over his shoulder, it's a touchdown. And he left it inside and almost got picked. But everyone's, what a throw by Brock Purdy. I'm like, he's had way better throws today than this.
Yeah.
He's been throwing dots all season. We don't have to gas up one of his throws that wasn't actually that good. Like, he's put enough on tape for us to be authentic about this.
The only pick that I missed against the spread this week was the Bills against the Dolphins. That was...
Y'all got that one wrong.
Yeah, I wanted to go with the Dolphins too, and wound up, deciding not to.
Well, it looked like you made the right decision
For a little while.
at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were
I
up
went and took a
14-0.
nap.
They're up 17-0.
Yeah.
They should have been up 21-0, but Dawson Knox dropped the ball.
Yeah, I went and took a nap when the Bills were up big. I'm like, I'm feeling sleepy and I'm old. I need a nap. And then I wake up and it's a 3-point game, with 2 minutes left or something. I'm like, what in the world happened?
And I'm still trying to really figure out how the Dolphins got back into the game the way that they did, because it's not like their receivers did well. Both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle had negative DYARs for the week. Tyreek Hill had the worst DYAR of the week, or of the weekend games, only beaten by Russell Gage, who actually had the lowest DYAR, but we don't need to talk too much about that side of things, because I'd rather focus for Russell Gage on the fact that we hope that he recovers
healthy,
quickly from what was another really scary moment on the football field. He suffered a head injury toward the end. It was like just outside the 2-minute warning of the Bucks Cowboys game, and they had to cart him off the field. So our best to Russell Gage. Hopefully he recovers from that. But anyway, back to the Dolphins. Their receivers did not play well in that game. Jalen Waddle didn't even have a catch until the second half, I don't think.
It might have been drops, though.
It might have been fourth quarter, in fact, when he got his first catch of the day. So I'm still trying to figure out how the Bills let them get back into that game. But, once again, credit where credit's due. The Dolphins did fight back. They didn't give up. Mike McDaniel seems like he might be a decent coach. There's some things here and there that definitely frustrate the hell out of me when I watch him coach. But he seems to have his players really buying into the system. And to not have either of their top two quarterbacks playing in that game. Tua out. Teddy was active but not playing. In fact, they had to go with
Skylar Thompson.
Skylar Thompson, who did not play well in any of his appearances during the regular season.
Well, he looked so bad against the Jets in Week 18. Like, it looked like the Dolphins were going to blow their playoff spot and give it to I guess,
the Steelers.
Mm-hmm. Like, could you imagine if the Bills had played that poorly against the Steelers? I think they lose.
The Steelers probably would have won.
Yeah, I mean, Allen was terrible for spots in this game. I said he was putting on a show. Like, after he threw the non-touchdown to Dawson Knox, it was originally ruled a touchdown, but Knox dropped the ball. But you had
crazy too, because earlier on that drive there was a pass that he made that I was 100% sure skipped like 4 yards in front of the receiver.
I didn't think there was any way that was a catch.
And somehow it did not. It was a catch. I was like, how?
And then Knox.
I was sure that it landed way short.
I took a glance at it, saw it happen. I was like, yeah, that definitely skipped, and looked away. And then they're like, hey, they're challenging this. I'm like, yeah, of course they're challenging it. That's not a catch. And they showed it. I'm like, that's a catch. That's like pretty clearly too.
Like LeBron's shot in the All-Star game.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
exactly. That's not going
swish.
in. Anyway, so Knox inexplicably drops the ball. I don't understand how that happens. That made it 17-0 instead of 21-0. Then Allen throws a couple pretty ugly picks. He had a really bad fumble too, where he was trying to do too much, which he tends to do that. And then what was like the third receiver for the Bills? Not Davis, not Gibbs, or Gibbs, jeez, Diggs. I'm sorry.
McKenzie? Isaiah McKenzie?
Not Isaiah McKenzie. You have to look him up. The guy that went over the middle and Allen threw a dot to him down the field on like 3rd and long, and he found a way to not catch the football, and I was just pulling my hair out. I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? Hold on to the ball, man. Like, I was getting very frustrated with these dudes. Just like
Cole Beasley?
No, it wasn't Cole Beasley.
Khalil Shakir.
Yes, Khalil Shakir. Yeah, he had like Allen put it right on his hands down the field, and he didn't maintain control of the ball as he hit the ground. I'm like, how do you drop that? Pull it in, tuck it away, hit the turf, get up, do a first down, spin the ball, maybe throw a little gritty in there. But catch the damn ball, right? Like, come on. And it's just like stuff like that was going on.
Also, shame on the Bills for allowing Mike Gesicki to get into the end zone.
That was
so
the
he
big
can
problem.
do it.
Gesicki turned into a stud again because I guess it's a new year. So now he's allowed one touchdown, and he did another terrible gritty, and they're just like, okay, you're done again until next playoffs.
Yeah, he scored his 2022 touchdown in the one game that I started him in fantasy, and then scored 0 points in 3 appearances for Evan.
Unbelievable. That gritty is awful.
Yeah. It is bad.
I will admit his gritty was better this time.
Not hard to improve on where it was.
But I still have to note that he made it hard for me to determine whether or not it was better. I had to check the tape with Hugh. I was like,
you actually subjected yourself to going back and rewatching it?
I thought there was a little something there that I was like, that might have been a little better. And so I watched it again, and I was like, why did I watch this again? It's still terrible, but it is a little bit better. Like, it wasn't clear, right? It wasn't like Jair Alexander doing the gritty to mock Justin Jefferson. His gritty sucked, but it was still 10 times better than anything Mike Gesicki has done. Like, that Alexander gritty was awful, though. Like, it was really bad.
It was nice to see Justin Jefferson get into the end zone after that game so that we could see a proper gritty.
Well, he did an extra spicy.
He did.
Big strides and stuff.
Extra spicy.
Maybe he was watching that game in the locker room before his game and was like, okay, America was subjected to that. I'm going to give them a little something extra to make it worth their while.
But the thing is, like, I think I like his OG gritty better.
Yeah.
But I still appreciate the fact that he decided, I'm going to really let people know I'm grittying in this end zone right now.
Cowboys rolled the Buccaneers in Tampa. I don't even know that I would put it quite this way. In the show notes, it says the Cowboys rolled the Buccaneers. I would say it was more so the Buccaneers got rolled by the Cowboys. To be fair, Dak Prescott was the best quarterback of the week by DYAR, but I think a lot of that is because they were playing against the Buccaneers defense, which is decent.
To be good.
Their defense is supposed to be good. Like, we've seen other defenses have really bad games, but you still get that adjustment. Like the Broncos earlier this season when they had that really bad game in Week 16.
The Broncos really bad game.
Well, the defense's really bad game in Week 16. The one that Sean Kennedy remembers because they were on his team in the playoffs of our fantasy league. That one where they scored minus 11.6 points. The other quarterback, really should not have gotten as much of an adjustment as he did. But that's how it works. So in this case, the Buccaneers defense didn't play that great. I think that's a part of the reason why Dak Prescott had such a high DYAR, because I really didn't see all that much from the Cowboys that I was like, oh yeah, this team is just going to be a force to be reckoned with in this playoffs. They were solid.
Dak made some pretty clutch throws in this game. Like, they weren't super difficult throws, but on 3rd and 4th down in the red zone when normally he would either throw a pick or they'd have to settle for a field goal, he was converting those into touchdowns, which was nullified by Brett Maher missing all the extra points.
But again, the Buccaneers defense was not playing very well either, and I think that was just as much a factor as Dak
I
playing
agree.
well.
It looked like the Bucs were just happy to be in the playoffs after their horrible season that they had. And, let's face it, the Cowboys have been way better than the Bucs all season, right? The only reason why we thought Tampa might win this game is because, 1, Tom Brady's playing for Tampa, and you can never count out Tom Brady. And 2, Dak Prescott's looked very erratic this season. He's had a lot of games where he's thrown inexplicable red zone picks that can cripple your team. And I remember thinking watching this game, I think the Bucs scored a touchdown to make it 24-6. And I remember being really annoyed because I'm like, wow, the Cowboys are going to score 4 touchdowns, miss all the PATs, and the Bucs are going to be able to tie it up with 3 touchdowns. But
wow.
But fortunately, the Bucs didn't get the 2-point conversion. But you're still like, okay, this is still game on at this point. And there was a play where it was 3rd and long. The Tampa defense was starting to kind of show a little bit of life, and Dak made a big throw. He converted that first down, and I was like, okay, this game's over, because this would be normally the situation where Matt Ryan crumbles, when Matt Stafford crumbles, when whoever is going to just ruin the game for their team because they can't, where Justin Herbert crumbled all second half. Get your name out of his mouth when talking about Joe Burrow or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. He ain't there. That's an aside, but there you go.
I did enjoy the Manning cast. That was the one thing that I will accept about the Monday game is that we had the Manning cast for that, and that was fun. We got a chance to hear from Neon Dion in the first half. Third quarter. What's that?
Coach Prime.
Yeah, Coach Prime. There you go.
The Buffs.
Going to Colorado. Third quarter, we got Man Campbell.
Love me some Man Campbell.
And then in the fourth quarter, Teddy Bruschi, which was cool. I enjoyed their back and forth between him and Peyton and Eli. It's like, I hate both of you.
It's always fun when like an ex-Patriot or a Patriot fan, like when Brady was there last year, like Eli and Brady had some fun banter because Eli obviously bested Brady in the Super Bowl twice,
and Peyton got the best of him a few times in the playoffs.
Yeah, but it's not the same.
Yeah, because Brady also beat Peyton a
Peyton,
lot.
Peyton beat him a lot,
but he
Eli,
never beat Eli in a game that really mattered.
Eli specifically took 2 rings off of Brady's hands.
Yep.
Whereas Peyton, he got him earlier in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, sure, if the Patriots had beaten the Colts in 06, they would have gone on to the Super Bowl, and they probably would have trucked the Bears.
But there's no guarantees.
There's no guarantees. And then the other 2 times that Manning eliminated Brady, it was when they would have had to go against the Legion of Boom, and that was the year that Brady's team was not good at all. Brady was carrying that lame-ass team, and they would have gotten smoked. And then in 2015, they would have had to go face Cam Newton, and they wouldn't have had Von Miller there to turn Cam into just a pumpkin. Yeah. So they might have lost that one. So really, it was only one where they probably were going to win. The other 2, they would have been underdogs.
Cam Newton's whole career might have taken a different trajectory since then.
I'm telling y'all, though, man, 2017 playoffs, Cam Newton was a menace. I know this because the Saints were playing the Panthers in the wild card round, and the Saints had beaten them twice. And damn it, Cam was going off, man. In the dome, just throwing dots everywhere. His receivers were dropping the ball. It didn't matter. He would make up for it by doing something superhuman, as he is wont to do. And I was just the whole time, I'm like, please, just let the time run out before he takes the lead because we're going to lose this game.
I miss good Cam Newton.
He was scaring the hell out of me in that game.
The Panthers need to build a statue. His career went downhill.
I don't know what they're waiting on.
Yeah, they should build a statue of Cam doing the Superman.
Oh yeah, thing. Absolutely, Super Cam.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Last coach that we got to talk about, coach who did not make the playoffs, possibly because he didn't realize in week 17 that if his team lost their game and a few other outcomes happened later in the day, which ... every single one happened, they would be eliminated.
It was really only one outcome. The Packers just had to win. They only had to keep track of one. He didn't.
Instead, they go and put Carson Wentz back out there and leave him out there, even after he throws a pair of interceptions early in the game. Ron Rivera, why haven't you been fired yet?
He cost me the playoff elimination challenge. If they win that game against Cleveland, Seattle's out, Washington's in, I have a perfect NFC, and I only lose the Miami pick late in the season, I would have won. And Evan probably would have lost because he probably eliminated Washington. He definitely eliminated Washington.
Yeah.
And it was probably a while back.
I eliminated them early.
Yeah, so I would have won the contest if not for Ron Rivera, which, it doesn't piss me off as much as the fact that I've been denied as the Grim Reaper Brandon Staley's corpse. I'm very upset about this. Not just because of that, but also because I hate Brandon Staley so much. He's on my list. Speaking of which, another addition to the list has happened. Kevin O'Connell's on the list.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah, I was waiting too.
You were very patient. You were overly patient, if you ask me, on adding him to the list.
They were winning a lot of games.
We've known that they're fraudulent. They are who we thought they were.
I understand that, but normally when a team is fraudulent and they're winning more than they should, the coach gets at least a little bit of credit. Brian Daboll was excellent this year, and the Giants overachieved.
But I think that's one of the issues here is maybe we have different definitions of the word fraudulent, because I really don't view the Giants as fraudulent. Like, are they a really good team? No. But is their record really good? 9-7-1 is not a really good record.
No.
It's barely above average.
Yeah. And
And the team is, in my opinion, barely above average. Like, their record perfectly defines what that team is in my mind. And yes, a lot of the credit for them even being that good definitely goes to Brian Daboll. He's been excellent this year. He deserves to be the coach of the year, in my opinion.
he's going to win it.
I think he should. But to call them fraudulent, I think, is a little bit disingenuous. Like, the Vikings are a fraudulent team. -3 in point differential for the regular season, even before you get to the loss of the Giants, and yet they were 9 games above 500. How does that happen? By being fraudulent. And how does that happen? By the coach not being that good.
Well, it also happens because your defense is garbage. But I think that
They also got lucky.
like I said about the Giants, is they were fraudulent early and then kind of got to a level where they matched their record, which is kind of what we're talking about. Like, they got to a point where they'd say, okay, you guys are actually legitimately pretty good. Mm-hmm. But early in the season, they weren't. They were just pulling rabbits out of the hat.
Okay. So that's fair, because they did start. Where did they start? Like 5-0 or something like that.
They
won like
at
6.
one point
Yeah,
or
they won
something
like
like that. I'm
yeah.
like, no, y'all aren't that good.
Yeah, no.
Like, they leveled off, but they still stayed pretty good. But like early in the season, everybody was like, Brian Daboll's doing an amazing job, and he was absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And so again, I'm not saying that Kevin O'Connell was doing a good job. He was very much. I had my eyes on him, and I was looking at you, and I'm like, I'm waiting for you to do something that I know you're capable of doing to put you on my list, but I'm not quite ready to do it yet. Like, this list is also probably doesn't help. This list is getting really long.
It's a very long list.
It should never be this long. It should
There
be 3 or 4
there
coaches.
should not be this many head coaches in the NFL who are so undeserving of that title. But
Dude.
there are a lot of them.
Keep in mind, my list is long. Mike McCarthy is not on my list.
So, yeah.
Oh, dear.
Like,
He's not there.
because as bad as Mike McCarthy is, he doesn't think that he's better than the game. He doesn't do things.
He's not here to say, look at me. He's
Yeah.
just Mike McCarthy. And Mike McCarthy's actually done an okay job this year. We got to give him a little bit of credit. Like, they're winning football games.
If nothing else, we have not, seen.
He hasn't had a moment.
We have not
Right.
seen like the moment where he very badly mismanages the clock.
This was the time this week against the Bucs, a game that they absolutely should have won, and they did, where McCarthy was going to McCarthy and they were going to lose the game. And he didn't.
Yeah.
Like, this week, they're playing the 49ers. The 49ers are great. If they lose on the road to the 49ers, it's like, okay, that's expected.
Kind of sad that we have to give an NFL head coach credit for not screwing something up, since that's really like what the job is.
In the context
But-
of my list.
and in the
yeah.
context of Mike McCarthy's career.
Yeah, it's sort of the standard. He messes these things up sometimes, and he hasn't done that yet. So we'll give him some credit.
Like the Cowboys' previous playoff game.
Yes.
Let's quarterback sneak it with no timeouts.
Yes.
Right up the middle.
Yeah, QB draw. 14 seconds left.
What?
Back
What
to
are
the
you doing?
head coach that we started this conversation on, Riverboat Ron.
Yes.
As Alex says in the live chat, the riverboat has sunk. Was the riverboat ever truly afloat? Because the whole reason that he got that Riverboat Ron moniker back in, was it 14 or 16?
I don't know.
I forget which year it was, but it was because
because
it was
Cam
because
Newton.
of Cam Newton, and it was because that was the year that he decided to kind of do what he had never done in the past as a head coach. Like, he had always been pretty
games.
conservative in his decision making, whether to go for 2, whether to go for it on 4th down, things like that. And all of a sudden, he just kind of threw caution to the wind that year and started going for it, and it worked. And because it worked, he got that moniker. But
Also
the
the
fact that he was
alliteration.
doing that in the first place, like, if it had not worked, he would have been on your list back then. He would
I
not
didn't have a list back then, but yeah, sure.
Sure, but like, he would not have continued as their head coach. He would not have gotten the job with Washington. Like, and anybody can say, well, yeah, but it did work, so it's a moot point. There are times when it makes sense to go for it on 4th down.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some coaches in the NFL today who are getting very aggressive with it, but I see the rhyme and reason behind them going for it when they do. They aren't just going for it every single time. There are some coaches in the NFL who I think are going way overboard with it, or doing it on every single drive. It doesn't matter the situation. Doesn't seem to matter the field position. Doesn't seem to matter what the score is or what point in the game we are. There are some it doesn't seem to matter whether your team even has any offensive momentum and what your defense has been doing. And that's what concerns me, is that there are coaches who don't seem to understand the nuance that the really good coaches take into consideration when they do get aggressive in going for it, whether it's for 2 points or on fourth down.
That's what coaching is. That's the gig.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the exact moment that got O'Connell planted on my list. It was definitely during this game.
Did he run some sort of sweep or something?
Yes, I feel compelled to keep bringing this up.
Short yardage?
Yeah, it was probably a short yardage situation. But there was also, of course, the last play, though. We didn't really talk about the last play where Kirk threw it 5 yards short of the sticks. And to be honest, yeah, Kirk should have thrown it up somewhere else. But, man, that play didn't do Kirk any favors. That was a terrible play call. It was a bunch of flag routes to the end zone on 4th and 8. Jefferson ran a deep route to the corner. He was covered. Not Thielen, but the other receiver they have, I forget what his name is.
KJ Osborne.
Yeah, there you go. KJ Osborne ran the same route the other way. He was covered. Thielen ran some curling, drag route almost that he never actually made a firm cut, so he never got open. He was covered. And then Hawkinson was the only one that actually ran a sharp route to get open quickly, and he was the check down. So Kirk threw it to the check down because Kirk doesn't have the ability to buy time. He's not a mobile quarterback. He had the pass rush bearing down on him. He's not Patrick
down
Mahomes.
By all that money.
He's not going to throw a dot into triple coverage, right? So the limited quarterback that you know is limited, and you set him up with that play. What was that? That was garbage. Absolute garbage.
Oh, we're turning into a Breaking Bad episode here because we keep going between Jimmy and Mike back and forth. We can't seem to decide whether we're going to stick with O'Connell or Rivera. So I won't try and bring us back to Rivera. We'll go ahead and move on to picks.
We're coming back to O'Connell later. I'm just kidding.
Jesus.
I gotta get one more shot in this clown. He's a newly minted list member. You gotta make sure he gets bullied plenty.
So I went 5-1 this past week. Eric and Evan both went 3-3 against the spread. That means Evan stays 500 on the season. 135, 135, and 5. Best and worst of Wildcard Weekend. We talked about a couple of those. Dak Prescott was the best quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, the worst quarterback, despite bringing his team back. Best running back by total DYR was Saquon Barkley. The worst was Dalvin Cook, who was also the worst of the week in Week 18 of the regular season. Best running back by rushing only DYR was Kenneth Walker, and the worst was Elijah Mitchell. The best receiver was Deebo Samuel, and the worst, again, was Russell Gage. Hopefully he is doing okay. Congratulations to Andrew Perez, who got 3 points this week. It pulls him into a tie with James Daly at 24 points for the season. James had a rough week. Won the regular season fan contest, did not get a single pick right against the spread. Our fan winner for the wild card was Sean Kennedy with 4 correct picks.
Nice. I think it's just as impressive to get all the games wrong as it is to get them all right.
Yeah,
how do you even do that?
No.
Yeah, who knows? So let's get to this week's picks. 4 games to talk about. 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. We will start with the 4:30 game on Saturday. Jaguars at the number 1 seed in the AFC, the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs are 8.5-point favorites in this game. How are we feeling about this? I see Evan has already put all of his picks into the list. So, Evan, I'll let you talk about your pick first.
I've got the Jacksonville Jaguars and 8.5 points. I feel like the Chiefs, they're definitely going to win, but I don't feel like they're going to smash the Jaguars. I feel like the Jags offense is going to be able to handle the Chiefs defense. I think Doug Peterson is a pretty good coach. Trevor Lawrence sort of got his playoff jitters out of the way.
You certainly hope so.
Yes. Yeah. So, I think this is going to be a closer game than the 8.5 line suggests.
I'm a little bit nervous with this one just because the Chiefs are so much better than the Chargers. If the Jaguars do have any kind of a rough start to this game, they're not going to come back against the Chiefs the way that they did last week. It's just not in the cards. If the Chiefs take a 10-point lead at any point in this game, I don't think that the lead is going to come back into the single digits. And I think the odds are that the Chiefs will take a double-digit lead at some point in this contest. And for that reason, I'm taking the Chiefs to beat that spread. I know it's a lot. I know that the Jaguars are hot coming off of last week, but I still don't trust the Jaguars to put together a complete game in the playoffs against a superior opponent.
Yeah, this is tough because it feels like the Chiefs are coming off a bye, which Andy Reid is a legendary bye-week coach, dating back to his days with the Eagles that carried over.
Particularly during the regular season.
Sure, but even so, like that's still coaching matters, and Doug Peterson's done a fine job, but Andy Reid's probably the best coach in football right now, and I think that really helps the Chiefs. But at the same time, they play with their food too much. I know it's the playoffs; the urgency is going to be ratcheted up, but I think that there are legitimate flaws with this Chiefs team that Mahomes has done a tremendous job covering up, right? Like the receivers aren't as dynamic as they were. Obviously, no Tyreek Hill. Their offense does have drives stall out at times. Their defense still isn't very good. Like the Jaguars could win this game. Like I'm not saying they're gonna, because Mahomes is magic and he always finds a way to get it done. But like I'm not counting the Jags out completely in this game. That's just too many points for me. I would have needed probably like a touchdown to be able to go with the Chiefs. They've all year the trend has been they don't cover the spread.
Okay, so I'll be on the lonely island for that game. 8:15 on Saturday. The Giants at the Eagles. I'll be up in Philly on Saturday, but hopefully I'll be back here by game time.
You're not going to
catch
game.
this one.
I was gonna say,
no, I am.
I'm going to Philly to watch.
You're not going
to link during a playoff game. Yeah, make sure
that my team is not playing.
Make sure you wear a Manders jersey or something just to stand out and hopefully not get your ass kicked.
Hopefully no drunk guy intentionally vomits on you, right?
The Eagles are laying 7.5 at home against the Giants. Evan, you've got the Giants. Care to explain?
Yeah, this is probably a dumb pick, but I get my sense is that division games are closer than they should be. The Giants are coached well, as are the Eagles. But I like the Giants' vibes right now, and to be honest, I feel like the Eagles win by just 7, and so it was the half point for me that did, or I guess the whole point. If it was 6.5, I'd gone with Philly.
You used the argument that I made last week when I took the Ravens, who were getting 9 points, and you still went with the Bengals.
He was emotionally hedging.
Yeah, got to emotionally hedge, man.
This is why Corey wins
I end up with the
he
worst of both anyway. I knew that.
He doesn't
Maybe
get
that helps.
emotionally involved here.
Yeah, I'm taking the Eagles here because while, yes, 100%, it's a division game. Division games tend to be a little bit lower scoring, and it's the third time these two teams have played against each other. The one big difference between the Giants going up against the Eagles and the Ravens against the Bengals, well, a couple of differences. One, the Eagles are better than the Bengals. The Bengals are a good team. The Eagles are better. Giants versus Ravens, I'd say that they're probably kind of similar, but one thing, the Ravens actually have a top 10 defense according to DVOA, while the Giants are one of the bottom 5. The Giants are a terrible defense. It's their offense that has kept them in games. It's Saquon Barkley first and foremost, and it's Daniel Jones doing a pretty good job of making plays with his legs and avoiding making mistakes when he's throwing the ball, because he doesn't have a lot to work with. He doesn't have a lot of really good receivers, but when he does throw the ball, it's been accurate. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes this year. That's what's keeping them in games. But their defense is not going to be able to keep the score as low as it should be for a third game between division opponents, in my opinion. So, the Eagles are at least a touchdown better than the Giants. And honestly, I would say that they're, 7 is the minimum that they will win by. And there's a lot of numbers above 7 that they could easily win by. I'm going to take that sample size. That's not the right word, but yeah, I'm going with the Eagles.
I think that's really solid analysis, honestly. Like I don't disagree with you. Just doing something a little different. I picked the Giants. Why not?
The nerds love to say that the whole, division games were close thing is a myth, and they're probably right, but I still don't believe them. I just don't buy it, right? Like, it's just like, and I know that sounds like, as somebody that loves analytics and, nerdy stuff and getting in the nitty gritty with the data and stuff like that, and sort of removing misperceptions about things, it still just doesn't feel right. Like, it feels like you've seen it so many times. But at the same time, like, I think that Eagles are kind of trending not in the best direction due to Hurts' injury. Before the bye week, I'm going to assume the bye week's going to give him some time to. He's not on the injury.
And to be fair, he played pretty well in Week 18. He was definitely not pain free.
Sure,
but he played pretty well. I have to imagine 2 weeks later he's going to be better.
Yeah, and this is where I also feel compelled to say the Giants didn't play anybody in Week 18, so they didn't really show much there. But at the same time, they also gave the Eagles a little bit of a scare, so I think there's not really much of a chance of the Eagles going out there and, getting caught off guard here. Like, they know to take the Giants seriously. They know that this is a situation where, they could lose. Like, if the Giants are scrappy and capable and weird enough that they could come in there and beat you, but just the numbers suggest to me that the Eagles are so much better of a team than the Giants are. Like, their defense is really good. The Giants' offense is going to be limited purely just because of their personnel. And then the fact that the Giants' defense is bad, that's not going to do you any favors against Philly, who's got one of the best offenses in the league. I mean, Jalen Hurts was going to win MVP if he didn't get hurt. So, I mean, this seems like, I hate the hook. The hook sucks, but sometimes you just got to power through, and I'm taking Philly.
It's funny. Sometimes you love the hook. Like, if this was 6.5, you're like, yeah.
Well,
I guess that's not even 6.5. I guess that's not even different. I don't know.
It's good if you're picking the underdog.
Yeah.
You love it. It's like, I'll get 7.5. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I do feel like it's worth pointing out it's going to be an absolute insane asylum in Philly on Saturday night, right? Like, Eagles fans show up to Sunday morning games, with "you should be in church," according to my grandmother. A Sunday morning show up at 7 a.m. crushing beers in a parking lot before a 1 o'clock game. So I'm sure they'll be at this game at like 6 a.m. crushing beers in a parking lot. Everybody's going to be all lathered up, and Eagles fans stay a little lathered up anyway.
Plenty of Giants fans will be there too. Eli Manning is going to be in the house. He said he said that he had no intention of ever going to a game at the Link past retirement, but he's planning to be there.
Maybe he's going to be behind some plexiglass with a bunch of security, hopefully for his
sake.
Might
need it.
But I mean, like we know that Philadelphia loves to be like we saw him in the playoffs for baseball this year. That was an insane playoff atmosphere.
Yes.
Like the fact that the Astros escaped there with not 1 but 2 wins was just like, that's the feat of the century as far as I'm concerned. I'm like, you should be happy you're even still alive in this World Series, let alone up. So It's going to be nuts.
Sunday's games will be at 3 and 6:30 p.m. The 3 o'clock game will feature the Bengals at the Bills. 2 of them will meet for the first time since DeMar Hamlin's injury ended their first matchup in the first quarter. The Bills are 5.5-point favorites. And Evan has the Bengals. So talk about that, Evan.
I'm pretty certain the Bills are going to win, but I just don't feel like the Bills are firing on all cylinders, I guess. Like, they should have smashed the Dolphins, right? They should have won that game by 50, and they won by 3. So the Bengals, who have no shortage of confidence, right? Like, they're going to be ready to go in the lion's den and definitely not tippy-toe in. So, if Josh Allen is slinging picks and if Joe Burrow, believes in himself as much as he seems like he does, then I think this is going to be a close game. I think the Bills probably win by 3. maybe in overtime or something.
Yeah, this the phrasing that I really wanted to convey when I was talking about the Eagles and the Giants was the more expansive side of that range of outcomes, where I feel like the minimum for the Eagles to win by is 7. The more expansive side of the range of outcomes is on the other side of 7.5. In this case, I think that favors the Bengals, because while the Bills could win by more than 5.5, I think that there are a lot more likely outcomes on the other side, on the underside of that, where the Bills either win by fewer or maybe even the Bengals win. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility the Bengals win. The Bengals were up 7-3 and driving in that first quarter of the first game. So they can move the ball on this defense. I think that they will move the ball on this defense for some of this game. If the Bills have any lapse of concentration like they did against the Dolphins, I think the Bengals can take advantage of that. The Bengals are at the best that we have seen them this season right now, in my opinion. They are getting hot at the right time, the same way that they did last year, where they, didn't necessarily limp into the playoffs, but they didn't look all that impressive through most of the season. And then we find them in the Super Bowl. I don't think that that's impossible to see happen again this year. The Bengals are playing good football right now, and the Bills are beatable. So I am also taking the Bengals.
I mean, this feels like a Kyle turn the TikTok camera on moment. The Bengals are a better football team than the Bills are.
Yo.
They're better than them. They have been for the last 12 weeks, right? Like, you don't get any points for blowing out the Rams in September, right? This is January football. And, Romo was on TV all week talking about how, kept calling Josh Allen January Josh or Mr. January or whatever, while he's throwing a ridiculous interception. I'm just yeah, guys, you're calling him that based off of one playoff run that lasted 2 games, one of which he didn't even win, right? It's based off of his insane performance against the Patriots last year in the wild card round, and then his insane duke it out matchup with Patrick Mahomes that he probably should have won but didn't.
Probably should have at least gotten a chance to.
Yeah. But that was one playoff run. His other 2 playoff runs, again, one was before he was good. So you kind of give him a pass for that ridiculous game against the Texans where he took a 28-yard sack and even tried to throw in a fumble for good measure. But his first season of being good in 2020, he was kind of up and down in the playoffs. He struggled against the Chiefs in the conference championship game after they got out to a big lead. He just went to sleep for basically 2.5 hours. Right, it's not like he's just this locked in. He's not Joe Montana, right? Where it's you can count on this dude to be awesome every week in the playoffs. But you know who you can count to be pretty damn awesome every week in the playoffs? Joe Burrow. That dude is unflappable. He's
that dude.
Yeah, he is him, right? And I just think that, to be honest, I think the Bengals are a better football team right now. I still think the Bills are going to win just because the Bengals' offensive line issues it's rearing its head again at the wrong time. I think that's what's going to save the Bills from losing this game. But the line opened at 4.5 or 4 or something like that. I was like, okay, well, if the line moves down to 3, I might take it moved up. How did that happen? No, Bengals.
And don't forget the coaching mismatch in this game as well, right? Sean McDermott is pretty good, and Zach Taylor is on your list.
Zach Taylor has been temporarily reprieved from the list.
What?
Not because of his football ability, but because I give him a lot of credit for how he handled the Damar Hamlin situation as the opposing coach. I am giving him a brief reprieve, but this is probation before judgment type of situation where if you slip up again, you're right back on the list. There's going to be absolutely no mercy for you if you do something dumb.
And that'll bring us to the 4th and final game of the weekend, 6:30 on Sunday. The Cowboys at the 49ers. Based on the point spreads, we're expecting the games to get better and better as the weekend goes on because they're getting smaller and smaller. And here the 49ers are 3.5-point favorites. And I just want to know why. Why are they only 3.5-point favorites? This should probably be the biggest spread of the week. I am pounding the 49ers. Like, this is the easiest pick I think I will have made all season.
It's Corey as he's pounding the 49ers while
God.
tapping
Well,
the table.
I already have 49ers in the sheet, and Corey expressing all this confidence has me concerned now.
But Corey's winning.
I have the best picks record of the year for us,
And you went
and my
5-1 last
confidence
week.
has you concerned?
Yes.
Why?
Yes, it does. Yeah. So I got the Niners. Their defense is incredible.
You can change your mind.
No, sheet of integrity. It's in there.
Integrity.
The Niners defense is great. Their offense is good with Mr. Irrelevant.
Their offense is great.
Yeah, their offense is great with this guy. So, like, what can Dallas do that the Niners can't?
Miss extra points.
Okay, well, there you go. 4 missed extra points will be the difference in the game. So, -3.5.
It's only 3.5, so there you go.
Yeah, exactly. How in the world did that guy miss 4 extra points?
He was great all year, too. Like,
He
he was legitimately a really good kicker this year.
Full shankopotamus.
Unbelievable. Like, that first one was so bad. It wasn't even close. I was like, wow.
He pushed it, right?
Yeah, and I was just like, I didn't understand. I was like, okay, I've seen them miss extra points before. That was probably the worst one I've seen in a long time. And that was kind of an indication. I'm like, something's wrong with this guy today. Like, he just doesn't have it. And it proved out he missed 3 more.
Third.
My goodness.
I didn't see the fourth one. I went to bed.
The fourth one.
But he made a field goal all the way.
Yeah, that was at the end, though. Well, the fourth one was the. Actually, no, he didn't. They scored 31 points. Right? The final score was 31 to like 10 or something
14
like that.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they.
No, that was 5 touchdowns. He missed 4 extra points. So 35
He made
minus
1.
4 is 31. Yeah, he didn't make a field goal. Pretty sure.
But they also failed a 2-point conversion along the way.
No, they didn't. They kicked the PATs every time.
I thought they had a 2-point try.
The Tampa tried a 2-pointer to try to cut it to 16.
Okay.
That's when everybody was freaking out. It's like Tom Brady's going to win a game despite scoring one fewer touchdown than the opponent.
I could have sworn that Maher kicked the field goal.
No, he made an extra point, and I put a GIF out there of people celebrating because he finally made one. Anyway, you guys are absolutely right about the 49ers. This line would have made sense if the Cowboys were at home. Maybe then it would have been a little much, but I feel like the 49ers should probably be favored by, probably a 6.5 to 7.5 is probably the range that I would say.
7.5. Wow.
I mean, like, the thing is, the Cowboys, their defense is pretty good. Micah Parsons is insane. He was just destroying Tom Brady all damn night the other night. That was he was in the backfield every play, breaking up passes, blowing up screens, blowing up runs, sacking the quarterback, doing all that good stuff. The Cowboys offense was moving the ball well. I do think that the 49ers defense is susceptible to being attacked down the field. Right, their secondary has struggled. Like, we've seen them.
But the Cowboys have been very inconsistent
Yes.
with that part of their game. Like, some weeks CeeDee Lamb is really on it, but it feels like CeeDee Lamb has been in his most effective recently in the shorter passing game. Not like short as in within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage necessarily, but no more than 10 to 15 yards downfield, and often with post routes into the middle of the field, or even just like 10 and in sort of routes. He's not beating a lot of guys on straight go routes, and Noah Brown is too inconsistent to rely in that kind of game. Like, they don't have anybody else that you can really rely on to make that a focal point. So while I agree the 49ers may be susceptible to that, I don't think the Cowboys are going to be able to actually take advantage of that on enough plays.
I agree. I think that CeeDee Lamb is a legit stud receiver, but he's one guy. The Cowboys don't really have that second guy with Michael Gallup being injured. They
should have had Amari Cooper. What happened to him?
They traded him because he cost too much money.
Yeah. And he had a much better season than I thought he would with the Browns.
Yeah.
Well,
I thought they got rid of him because he called Dak the Black Kirk Cousins.
That is also possible, but he also made too much money. CD's a bona fide number one, despite his inconsistencies for my fantasy team, which, whatever. But again, he's not enough to be a one-man wrecking crew, and Dak isn't good enough to really kind of be like we talked about, like Brady being able to in the past take a bunch of receivers that weren't that special and just understand the matchups, and pre-snap he knows, okay, this guy's not that fast or that talented, but he's being guarded by this guy, or I can make him guarded by this guy, which means he's going to burn him. Dak doesn't quite have that grasp of football because nobody other than maybe Peyton Manning has had that grasp of football at the quarterback position. So he can't quite make these lesser receivers as relevant as, somebody like that. It's just, there's nothing here, right? Like, Dallas is a very good team. The 49ers are an excellent team. The excellent team wins, especially when they're at home. This is an easy pick.
Yeah. Like I said, probably the easiest pick that I've made all year.
I think it's a late.
Like this, I was absolutely dumbfounded when I saw that the line was this small for this game.
Are you a little bit worried about Kyle Shanahan's propensity to outsmart himself?
Not in this game. I'm worried about that rearing its head at some point in this playoffs. Don't get me wrong.
He almost did it last year against the Cowboys on the road.
I'm not concerned about it in this game.
Okay. I'm not either, but I just figured I'd throw it out there.
Fair enough. Any late breaking news? Any Woj bombs? Any Schefter bombs?
Schefter bombs. Oh my god. I don't think
any Passan bombs?
I don't think.
Or Passan bombs.
Passan. It's very French of you, Corey. I don't think.
Or the croissant, which is actually not French, it's Austrian.
My second guess would have been Belgium.
Yeah.
Austrian. That's
I think
crazy.
I've had in the past. We're through 2 days of the math experience. So I've had 10 different contests with that Kahoot, and I think only one student so far has gotten that question right.
Yeah, because it's a trick question.
Oh, it very much is a trick question.
Like, I remember asking myself, "Is this a trick question?" Click France. Yes, it's a trick question because I got it wrong.
In some ways, so is what is the oldest soft drink in the United States? Everybody thinks it's Coke.
What was the actual answer?
Is it water?
Dr. Pepper.
Is it really?
Soft drink. It's Dr. Pepper. It's the
Really?
oldest soft
It's not
drink in the United
water?
States.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Because
Why isn't the
guessed
answer
that,
water?
and I wondered if anybody guessed Canada Dry, just because it's not a United States drink, but
Some people have guessed Canada Dry.
But people might have thought that's a trick question because we wouldn't. Maybe Canada Dry's from the U.S. It's possible.
It
Like
could be.
Fiji water's probably not from Fiji, right? Is it actually
I
from
think
Fiji?
it actually
Is it really?
I think it actually is
No
imported.
way.
No
way.
I think so.
That's crazy.
Now I want to look that up.
Yeah, we should look that
We're
up.
over here on a sports podcast, not
this
talking
is-
about sports, but we're at the end of the show anyway.
Yeah, and we've kept it to like 92 minutes, so
That's true.
Somehow.
Yeah, well, because we didn't talk about other sports, and it's the playoffs, baby.
Let's see.
Playoffs.
Fiji water.
So anyway, while Corey's doing that, the Wizards are
It
beating the Knicks
is
by 12.
derived, bottled, and shipped from Fiji.
Wow. No wonder it's so expensive.
According to marketing materials, the water comes from an artisan aquifer in Viti Levu. Fiji Water is headquartered in LA. So they do import it from Fiji, but of course
Okay.
it is an American company.
Okay. I
love
knew it
how-
wasn't-
Which, I mean, maybe they import the ginger ale for the ginger from Canada,
that's
but
possible.
they actually
That's
make the
my
ginger
point.
ale here.
It's like it could be Canada Dry is an American company. It's just
Because the dry part of the product comes from Canada.
sure.
Maybe. I wonder. Now I'm curious about that too, but I'm not going to look that up right
That's
now.
a little much.
Become a soft drink podcast.
All
right.
well,
Evan.
I want to shout out Ryan Jensen, who I think played his first game this year on Monday night in the playoffs. He's center for the Buccaneers. He played for the Ravens, got a big deal from the Bucks. Somebody I root for, and it was a bummer to see he got hurt, I think, in the preseason, like right as soon as camp started. So congrats to him for working his way back to get in the game before the season ended.
Yeah, Ryan Jensen, the mean dude, man.
Yes, those are the type of offensive linemen I love, right? Somebody who's mean and nasty, looks like he stinks all the time. Those are the type of offensive linemen you want protecting your potentially $500 million quarterback. Don't even look at Lamar. Just keep going.
All right, so that is Evan's shout out. Eric, you have a shout out this week?
Yeah, I wrote some down. A shout out to Trevor Lawrence for going to Waffle House after a really big
that was awesome.
win in Duval, I guess Duval County is where Jacksonville is based, and of course Jacksonville's like the Waffle House capital of America. So I made sure he went and grabbed some Waffle House. Shout out to my man Bomani Jones. His show Game Theory returns not tomorrow, Friday.
Oh, they're doing Fridays this year?
Yeah, at 11 o'clock. So he will be following up real time with Bill Maher. Excited to see what's going on with whole Game Theory. Looking forward to that. So that's all I got, I think.
All right, so I'll give a shout out to HBO for bringing back Game Theory, and also for the first episode of The Last of Us, which aired on Sunday.
Yes.
And the first episode not only met my expectations, it exceeded my expectations. Video game adaptations to television series or to movies have not gone very well typically.
It's a pretty bad track record.
But HBO has done right by The Last of Us. Neil Druckmann, who was one of the key creators of the initial game as well as part 2, is working on the series along with I can never remember the name of the director, but he did Chernobyl, which I also need to see because apparently it was excellent. But they did a great job with the first episode. Pedro Pascal is amazing. He's amazing in The Mandalorian. I have not watched Game of Thrones, but he was apparently amazing in that as well.
For a little while, yes.
For a little while. But I mean, for a little while, it's kind of the whole thing with all the characters in Game of Thrones.
That's
it
true.
seems like.
He felt like it was, but I was sad to see him go. I was like, I wanted to see more of that guy.
Yes.
That guy was awesome.
Speaking of which, The Mandalorian is coming back March 1st. I'm looking forward to season 3 of that.
Pretty awesome on ESPN.
I'm excited for that.
They showed it during the Monday Night Football game, and Scott Van Pelt showed it during his Sports Center.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. But he did a great job in the first episode as Joel. Bella Ramsey as Ella so far seems like a really good casting choice as well. The girl, Nico Parker, I believe is her last name, who played Sarah, was amazing. Like, just great show. Even if you have never played the game and aren't really interested in those sorts of games, I definitely highly recommend giving this a check out. And also shout out to Troy Baker, who hosted the first episode of the podcast that's basically the companion to the show. So after every episode of the show, they'll release a podcast. And I don't know if Troy Baker's going to host every episode. I'm hoping they're going to move around, and maybe Ashley Johnson will host the next one. But it was a really good first episode of the podcast, as well as talking through the theme of the series, as well as some of the ins and outs of how the first episode was created and how the show came about. My other shout out is Patrick Bean, who is the head coach of St. John's basketball team. So before the game yesterday between DeMatha and St. John's, Father James and Dr. McMahon got in front of the crowd and talked a little bit about Coach Bean, and we were taking up we were raising some money for him. So he was diagnosed recently with ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, obviously a very terrible disease, and something for which there, aren't really, there's no cure, and treatments range in effectiveness. So just want to give my best to him.
Yeah, Bella Ramsey, also awesome on Game of Thrones for a little while. Yes.
Thank you, Eric.
Yes.
So I think that does it for this week's show. Next week we plan to do our show on Monday, and then we'll kind of figure out our schedule. Probably be on Mondays for a few weeks, and then at some point potentially pivot to Fridays as a regular thing. If you enjoyed this show, first of all, thank you so much for sticking with us through the entire thing. If you ever have any topics that you would like to hear us discuss on future episodes, you can email those to us, thesportsballers@gmail.com. That's thesportsballers@gmail.com. You can send them to us, and we will include them in our mailbag segments. We haven't had a lot of those in the past couple of football seasons. It used to be a pretty popular segment. Hopefully we'll get some more of those in the future.
Our friends have abandoned us.
They have, but that's okay. We don't need our friends. We got our fans.
We have each other.
Yes, both of them.
And we have each other. Both of them. You can also just drop them in our DMs on Twitter At SportsBallers18 is our handle. You can also follow us individually on Twitter. I am at Corey Puffett. Eric is at Quagmire67, and Evan is at Evan_Ash13. Wherever you're listening to us right now, you can catch us every week on this platform. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and Amazon, and we live stream on YouTube. That should do it for episode 226 of the Sports Ballers podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch you next time, and until then, take care.